What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the next video of my Season 3 Dragonflight Mythic Plus guides. We're just going to be going through a 25 Darkheart Thicket today. I'll go over all the M Plus tips and tricks that I can think of. There are things that are subject to change, obviously, since Blizzard will make changes throughout the season, so just bear with that if the information is not up to scratch. But hopefully everything here is up to date for a while. So let's get started. We're going to start off the key. We're going to pull pretty much everything up to the bears. Now, regarding everything here, you've got poisoners, which turn into spiders. They'll put a nasty dot on someone, which is just a little bit of a poison AoE on them. Just needs to be dispelled, and just be careful where you're standing. The Nightclaws, like every other cat, will jump on a player and do a bit of a swipe. It'll put a dot on you. Make sure you're not stacking. And then the Screeches will do a nasty cast that you need to interrupt. Otherwise, it disorients people. And that is not good if it disorients the tank, because if that goes off and the tank gets disoriented, then he will lose aggro, or they will lose aggro, and yeah, they'll just the mobs will just start attacking random players, and that's pretty much a wipe. Now, the biggest concern here is the Grizzly, which is the bear here, which will constantly ramp up damage every time it uses its ability, and it will start placing mobs on the floor, which will target players. Now, these mobs will be the same mobs that'll be on the first boss in this dungeon, as you'll see here, which are the Abominations. You just need to run away from them. You can clearly see them, who they're targeting with the line there. And just don't stand in the AoE on the ground that they put in, and also don't get hit by them, because they do a lot of damage. You can kill them eventually just by doing AoE, but you want to just try and kill the bear as soon as possible, because once this mob dies, all the summons that come from the bear die as well. As you can see with the weak aura, it says 2, which means the damage is amplified every time it roars, so you want to actually try and kill this as soon as possible. And we are lusting this pack because it is fortified. The next pull is going to be these Ruiners and the Razorbeaks. So the Ruiners are really annoying because they keep doing these casts. Now, the Despair cast is going to be on the tank. It does a heavy magic damage. It's not very nice, but it is not the most important thing to interrupt, because you want to interrupt their main ability called Star Shower. Now, the reason why is because it makes it kind of rough for people to stack up, because they have to constantly move around when this comes out. And because they're constantly moving, they have a very high chance of pulling extra mobs around here. As you can see, there's more mobs. There's another bear in the back left there. So it's much easier if you just interrupt the Star Shower and make sure people don't accidentally pull mobs. Now, the Razorbeaks will just do a frontal, which will be right on where the tank positions. Just be a little careful where you're facing them, because they will kill people. And if you do get hit by them, they will stun the person. Now, this area where I'm tanking it, it kind of bugs out a little bit. It does like do an after effect stun, so sometimes it doesn't actually stun you straight away. So I would personally prefer people to kind of face it downwards, or move the mobs a little bit down this little alcove over here where I start moving them, because we have found that it kind of does bug out a little bit. But just make sure your melee and the rest of your group are kind of understand where you're tanking it, and then just try your best as the tank not to position anywhere near them in case they do get hit. See, this propelling charge goes in. It does that bird does move a little bit just before it charges. It unfortunately hits our DH. That's a little bit on me, but also a bit on the the mob just kind of twisting a little bit. As you can see, I'm not moving, but the bird just kind of moves itself sometimes. So you just got to be a little careful. But yeah, unfortunately, our DH does die there. So these mobs do take a little bit of a time. So just try to put some cooldowns on these if you can. Otherwise, we're gonna go to the left here, and we're gonna jump up onto this tree branch, and then we're gonna jump over so you can skip those mobs on the other side. You don't want to do those. There's a lot of bad mobs over there. So we're gonna go to this pat over here, and this pat means patrol. Be very careful in this area. As you can see, there are a lot of mobs around you. You do not want to pull any of those mobs. You just want to pull the ones right ahead of us, and we're going to run straight down the middle. So this one is a Ruiner. We're just going to interrupt it as we're going through. Make sure the Night Claws, everyone is hugging that wall so they don't accidentally pull someone. And then those Night Claws are going to jump. We're going to run through here and pull the rest of these mobs and chuck our 2-minute cooldowns onto this one. So we should have our 2 minutes or our 3 minutes up from our first pull by this time. So you'll be able to do a big pull here and grab all of these guys together. Now, again, this is just a smattering of pretty much everything we just dealt with. So you've got the Ruiners that are doing the Despairs and the Star Showers. You've got the Spider that's putting the poison on people. You've got the Night Claws that are jumping at people, putting a dot on them. Just, you know, very similar mobs to the start. Now we're going to kill all these Spiteful Shades, and then this is where you pretty much never, ever, on anything over like a 20, you never want to do these double bears, because they are really bad. Like I said, they amplify their damage every time they roar, and because there's 2 of them, it's very hard to kill them, especially if you just use your cooldowns here. So what we're going to do now is you pretty much want someone who is able to run past them and pull them to the side, hopefully someone with an invis, and then everyone else can go the opposite side, and then you'll be able to skip them. Otherwise, just invis pot them or have a rogue shroud you. In this group, we have a priest that can go there and just fade past them and then pull and shadow meld. But right now, we just use our hunter, who's going to camouflage down there, pull them over to him, and then once we get there, he's just going to feign death, and he'll be fine. Very successful, as you can see. Perfect execution. Now we're going to go on to Archdruid Glaidalis. Hopefully I said that right. Now, there's a bunch of abilities that it does. First one, Grievous Leap. It's going to leap to the furthest target and put a nasty dot on them. On a higher key, you want to kind of rotate this between who has defensives. But if one person can take it, that's fine. It hurts a little bit. So just be careful. Try to get the person with the most defensives or someone that can last a little longer doing the bait over there. And then you've got the second ability, which is going to be Primal Rage. This is the tank busting ability. Now, this, you're going to be very careful. He will turn into bear form. He'll do a landslide in front of the mob, which is going to be facing the tank. So do not stand in front of the tank. Then he's going to knock you back. Now, I don't get knocked back here because I'm a DK. I can use Death's Advance. Now, as pretty much any other tank except for a Death Knight, you want to be able to leap out of this or jump out of this or anything. Just get out of the way of when he charges you. But remember, he does follow you until the last second, and then he'll find his trajectory and he'll go straight ahead. So you want to make sure you leap out at the last second. As a DK, on a Fortified, I can kind of just soak these because I have enough health. So right now I've got my Vampiric Blood with 1 second left, plus I've got a bit of a shield from my Blood Shield. So I just kind of soak this. It takes me about half health, and I just Death Strike myself back up. The reason why I don't want to move too much is, 1, I don't want to accidentally hit a melee, but 2, I don't want to move the boss so much so then they have maximum uptime on the boss, because we want to kill this as soon as possible. Now the third thing is Nightfall, which is you're going to spawn 2 adds, and it's going to choose 2 random targets. Now you want to make sure everyone is in melee when Nightfall comes out, so then the targets aren't out in range, and they're just split up. You want to kill these as soon as possible, because the more movement they have, the less room you're going to have, which is, as you can see, depicted by this red stuff on the floor. Now, again, same ability these mobs are doing, the same ability as the bears, the mobs that the bears summon. So you don't want to get touched by them, and you don't want to stand in the pools that they leave on the ground, because it does hurt a lot, especially at this level. So again, we're baiting the Night Abominations, and I'm facing them away. I'm facing the boss away from everyone else, as well as trying to keep these Abominations together with my Death Grips, and just making sure that everyone can cleave. Now, it is a little bit scary when one of the Abominations targets a melee, because they kind of have to use a defensive to stay alive at a high key, especially Tyrannical. So just be a little careful with that, and if you are playing a DK, just be mindful. Don't just pull a mob straight to someone else. Now, as you can see with that specific frontal, there's these little rocks over here, and these branches on the ground. They actually stop the boss from charging forward. It still does the damage effect, but it does stop the boss from moving. So if you do have a defensive and you can live that as a tank, it's best to use that specific area in order for the boss not to move so much, so your melee have maximum uptime. If you play a full range comp, then you can just, you can run away from them all you want. because the range will just have, you know, full access to the boss at all times regardless. And that's pretty much the fight. You want to kill it in a timely fashion because you do see you slowly start losing room if you don't do things properly. But yeah, depending on what level you're doing and how your DPS are, you just want to work accordingly. So once we kill this boss, we will go to the next area. Just remember, once you do kill this boss, this is your new respawn point right here. So if you do die from this point onwards, this is your respawn point, not the start of the dungeon. So if you die in the next like 5 minutes, you can just release straight away. There's no point in using a B-res or anything. Just release and just run past, unless you do any kind of death skips or invis skips later on, which do happen in a lot of different routes. Now this is a pretty pug-friendly route. There's not really much going on here, except you do want to actually skip some of these mobs. Now the new mob here is the Dryad and the Blossom. Now the Blossom, all they do is put a root on the ground that'll depict as a swirl, and then it'll do a uproot, which will knock people up and do a lot of damage. So you want to be a bit careful of that. You can stun them to stop the cast, and then these Dryads are just going to continuously spear random people and put poisons on them. Now they hurt a lot, so you want to be nuking those down. Now the reason why we only do 3 mobs here is because we want to skip this pack coming up. And the reason why is because it has a very annoying mob in there, which I'll show you in a minute once these die. The mob is this mob right here, the Keeper. So as you can see, it looks a bit different from the rest of them. So what we're doing is mind soothing that pack, and then we're going to CC that with an Imprison. The Dryad, because the Dryad hops around this area, and you want to make sure it's on the far left before you can hug the right wall. Now the Keeper, the reason why you want to skip as many of these guys as possible, if you can, is they spawn mushrooms that'll one-shot you if you go near them, and also they heal all these blossoms, these flowers. So until that Keeper is dead, those blossoms will not die. They will constantly heal. Now this pull coming up is we got the Dryad, we got the 2 blossoms, and then we got the blossoms at the back here, which I'm also pulling. Now the best way to do this is you want to grab all of them, right? You want to keep everything on the Dryad, and then you want to kind of chain AoE stun or knockback or CC in any way to stop these blossoms from using their ability to do AoEs, purely for the fact that you get more uptime on these mobs. Because you essentially want to pop your cooldowns here, if you can. Because there's quite a lot of mobs. If you can do that, great. But yeah, always focus on the Dryads and the Keepers first. The Blossoms don't do anything that is too harmful. You just need to dodge, which is something that I hope a lot of people can do. But once we kill these mobs, you can, again, use that little house as well if you want to do some, like, LOS strats for these, like, shades, or you want to, you know, specifically for this week, you want to run away from the shades, you can use that little hut there. Now, this is the pack that a lot of people do skip. Like, you can death skip this, or you can just invis skip this as well. The problem I have with this pack being invis skipped in pugs is because, or in general, is because if you do die beyond this point, you have to find a way back, and most classes don't have an invis. So, unless you're just not using a battle pot at all, I mean, I guess you could, but it's pretty much like you have to be smooth sailing past this point if you want to time this key, if you skip this mob. Which, I didn't really trust that. I'm just like, let's play it safe. So we're going to pull the Keepers, and we're just going to absolutely destroy these Keepers with our cooldowns, because the rest of the mobs will just constantly heal and they will never die. Now you can see all these mushrooms, and as you can see as well, our Demon Hunter over here is using their Netherwalk, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, Netherwalk, to run into the mushrooms because they take no damage, and then pop them so then we can go through, because they take a long time to despawn. So, he's popping them for us. We're going to kill these Keepers. As soon as the Keepers are dead, I'm going to be rushing straight through down that corridor, and we're going to go right into the next pack, because we don't want to be doing just 2 mobs by themselves. We want to be going straight to the next pack and pulling as much as I can. So I there test my AMS. I'm just like, let's have a dip in there. Let's see how it is. Unfortunately, if you pop it, anyone that's close by dies as well. So we just figured that out. So as you can see, our Demon Hunter's here, but the mushroom is here. So don't pop any of the mushrooms if someone's nearby, because that will kill them as well. So we found that out the hard way, unfortunately. I think I just BRS them, or do I let them run back? No, I do BRS them, so that's good. And then we're just going to run down past here. I'm going to grab this pack here. Now, these dwellers coming up are very annoying if you don't have a boomkin or an assassination rogue with AoE Garrote and Silence, or a Vengeance Demon Hunter with a double sigil. They do constant interruptible abilities that will fear you at the end of the cast. So you need a lot of interrupts, and because our group is not very well equipped with a lot of interrupts, as you can see, we have two long-ranged interrupts and two short cooldown melee interrupts, so it's not the best combination. So I'm pulling a few of these into this pack, and not all 5 at the same time. Now, depending on your comp, you can do a smattering of either. Just pull accordingly. You don't need to pull all these at the same time. It is helpful, obviously, but if you can't, don't do it, because you will kill your group if they get overrun by this. Now, this is just 2 mobs. Or 3, actually, because one of them just start walking in. As you can see, if you pull a bunch of them, the rest of them kind of just, like, trickle in. They kind of know you're there. I don't know how it works here, but, like, they kind of just know you pulled its friends or something just over to this side, so it's just like, oh, let's have a look what's going on here. But, yeah, we've got 3 of them, and you can see they're already kind of, like, screwing with us a little bit. There's a lot of damage coming out. It's getting a bit spicy. We're trying to do our AoE stops and everything. Luckily, we start killing a lot of the stuff just in time, and our cooldowns come up just then, as you can see on the left-hand side here. Our cooldowns are being used now. Unfortunately, our hunter does go down to either a spiteful or just a rot. But we do end up clearing that, which is good. Just get a res on him, and then we kill the last 2, which is not ideal. You don't really want to just do 2 mobs ever. But unfortunately, at this point, we just needed to. So then we're going to go to this boss, which is going to be Oakheart. Now, there's a lot of things you can cheese on Oakheart. Now, you've got Shattered Earth. As a Blood DK, you can just Death's Advance it every time, which is the knockback, and it does a big AoE, so you want to have some sort of defensive for that, because it does a lot of damage. Strangling Roots is on the ground. It'll put all these roots on the ground, and after a time, it will uproot, and all of these roots will turn into mobs. Now, the mobs do hurt the tank a little bit, so be a little wary. You can sort of kill them, but the easiest way to do it is to have some sort of root removal and go over them. So the easiest way to do it is if you have a paladin, have freedom on you, or freedom someone else, and you can just run over the roots and they'll be fine. Now, this Nightmare Breath is the big thing. A lot of tanks don't know this. You can actually dodge this Nightmare Breath every time, just by running out of range. So you can see the Nightmare Breath is coming out. Now, the first one, I get hit. I don't dodge it, because I'm a bit too slow. DKs are probably the slowest, one of the slowest classes in the game. So you want to make sure you're running just before it starts casting, just to make sure you got that. Now, I'm going to AMS here as well, or I should be AMSing here. I do it a bit too late. But this Crushing Grip is actually magic damage, so you can AMS it before he grabs you, and you can just negate the entire ability itself. So as a Blood DK, I highly suggest AMSing the grip and just running out for the breath. And any kind of like magic defensives as well for all the other tanks, you can just magic defensive the grip and then just leap out of the breath. Now, hopefully I do end up dodging the breath on this portion of the dungeon at least once, so I can show you. Or maybe I just think it's not even worth it because I'm a DK, I can just heal myself up, what's the point? But hopefully I do show you that it actually does work. We'll just go through the whole fight and we'll just have a look. So, next Nightmare Breath comes in, I'm grabbing all the mobs. No, I just deal with it, so I AMS that one just instead, because I don't care. And then the next Nightmare Breath comes up. Yeah, looks like I'm just gonna stay there. But yeah, you can just leap or run away from the breath. And it's not the longest range, so it'll only be kind of difficult for DK. Like even paladins that are kind of slow, you can just use your horse every time and you'll be fine. Just make sure you're looking at the actual ability countdown to ensure that you actually get rid of it. Alrighty, and Oakheart will die very, very soon. This is more of a like a healer check, I guess, because there is a lot going on with the AoE damage from the Shattered Earth and and all the ads and stuff. If you accidentally do stand in one of the roots, by the way, you kind of just, I mean, you're just rooted in place, right? Like, there's nothing you can really do, and you just need to kind of get someone to break you out if possible. It's not the worst, but you just need to make sure as the tank you're not facing the breath at anyone, and you got to make sure as the rest of the group you're not standing where the tank is, because the Nightmare Breath will kill you very quickly. The last thing I wanted to talk about on this boss, because I just want to move back a little bit, is when you do get picked up as the tank, you'll get thrown to a position, and you see that circle on the ground? That is where you're gonna land, and you'll do damage to the person that's kind of catching you. So that also, if that overlaps with something, you just gotta be a bit careful with the person catching you. And also just remember, like, when you get thrown as the tank, your position will change, so the rest of the group needs to make sure that they're repositioning as well, because you'll probably go to the opposite side. Now, because we skipped that pack earlier on in the dungeon, you're gonna do this pack instead on the side. Now, these mobs are a little weird. Like, they do a lot of burst damage. So, they summon decoys, which are the stalkers. And you got some dead eyes as well, which will just jump to a location. The stalkers will just do a lot of damage and do that kind of like backstab that rogues do, and the shadow step, sorry. And the dead eyes will just spawn some copies of themselves, which will die pretty quickly. And it's just a bit RNG, so you just want to be kind of careful not to get backstabbed by two of them, or just get like accidentally shot, which is I mean, there's nothing really you can do to avoid that. You just gotta hope. But on a higher key, you can easily just get one shot just by RNG. Now these mobs as well, these smaller blobs, when they explode, each one that explodes does a bit of AoE damage. So if you are going to kill all of them at the exact same time, you're probably going to have to pop a massive defensive, or the healer's going to have to make sure they have something up, because it does a lot of damage, as you will see in a second. Everything dies at the same time, and we just take a big old chunk of damage, which doesn't help. Then you've got this Fury, which does Blood Bomb, which is just a big AoE on the ground. Just don't stand in it, obviously. And then Blood Assault, you want to make sure you're facing it towards one of these plants or these bones, and it just pretty much doesn't move. It always faces the tank, so make sure as the tank, you're not facing it towards your group. And then we're just going to go to the next slimes. Now, if your healer doesn't have anything up, or is, needs a little bit of help, just don't kill them all at the same time. Like, be nice to your healers. It's a stressful season for healers. So we're going to kill them, wait for the Blood Assault to go as well. Now, when this Fury dies, this is the most important part. Do not let any of these casts go off from these little bursters that come out. There's 4 of them. They're going to cast 2 things. Blood Bolt and Blood Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis, sorry. These Blood Bolts will one-shot you if they go off. So you need to make sure you have a AoE, CC rotation, or mass silence. Otherwise, someone will die. So these Blood Bolts will go, and then the Blood Metamorphosis will turn any one of them that have that ability go off will turn into what you just fought, the Fury. The only difference is, I'm pretty sure it has less health, but also it's very annoying to deal with because you don't need it because it doesn't work. It doesn't go towards your count, and also it does not burst into more smaller adds. If you kill it, it'll just die. But yeah, you want to make sure these do not go off. It is very crucial. It is a massive time waster if these do go off. As you can see, 1 Blood Bolt went off just then. I don't know if you guys saw that. 1 Blood Bolt went off, and it immediately killed our DH. So we're just going to have a look which one actually it was. So we've got those going off. Pretty sure it's that middle one. Went off, and then boom. Insta one-shot, 1 ability. So you got to make sure, you have to make sure these don't go off. Especially in a high key. Now some of you might be like, oh, it's a 25, obviously it's going to one-shot, but it'll happen in like a little bit lower than this. I'm pretty sure like a 22 or a 23, it'll still one-shot someone. Any lower than that, you should be fine, but yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're kind of waiting for the Fury to go to the full left. Unfortunately, we did take a little bit too much time just by rezzing our DH, so kind of have to wait for the patrol again. So we're just going to pull these slimes to the side towards us for now, and we're going to kill these and wait for the patrol. You don't need to do this second Fury. They take a lot of time, they don't give you a lot of count, and they are very annoying to deal with, like I mentioned with the extra mobs that they do spawn. So you want to just walk through. Like, it's very easy, you don't need any invises or anything, just walk straight through. Now, Dresaron, this boss is very simple. It's got 3 main abilities. It's got your Breath of Corruption, which is going to face the tank, and it'll just, you know, dodge the breath. Very simple dragon mechanic. Every dragon has a breath. Just dodge it. The second ability is going to be Downdraft, which is going to do a big pushback on the group for a while. So all you need to do is be under the boss. That's it. As long as you're under the boss, you barely move. Now for us DKs, we can just disadvance every single one. We're fine. Then the next one is Earth-Shaking Roar. This is the one that hurts a lot, and this is the one you got to watch out for because you have to move very quickly. It's going to pick a random player, including the tank, a random player, and it's going to put a giant AoE on the ground that will not disappear until the 3rd Earth-Shaking Roar spawns. So that's 1, which is baited out there, which is great. That's what you want from your range. You want your range, as soon as Earth-Shaking Roar is about to go off, spread out, pick a side far away from the boss so you don't have to move. Hopefully it baits on them, and then they can come back into the boss for Downdraft. So it's a very simple rotation. You come in for Downdraft, you go out for your Earth-Shaking Roar. Back in for Downdraft, out for the Roar. Very simple. Tank always face the Breath of Corruption away. Now you're probably wondering what all these eggs are around. They, if you walk over them, will hatch those little whelplings. Now they don't do a lot of damage and they're not that bad to tank. They do die very quickly. The only reason why you would ever want to pop these eggs is for 2 reasons. 1, if you want the range to be able to constantly be doing damage and casting, and they can have a spot on a wall where they don't have to run forward and they can just continuously cast while being knocked back from the Downdraft. Or 2, if you have any DPS that require more adds to funnel into one target, such as rogues. There are definitely other classes out there, I just don't know them off the top of my head, but if any classes get more single target damage by having more mobs around them, then you can pick up some whelplings and you'll make this boss infinitely faster. Now, as you can see, I'm just positioning the boss in a way where the boss is facing away from the group, but also we have enough room around that if they do get knocked back, they don't get knocked back into another rubble. But also, there's enough room for them to spread out evenly, so no more than one person gets caught in a rubble as well. So at most, you'll see 3 of these earth-shattering roars on the ground, or there should be. So the next one that spawns should despawn the first one that came out. So as you can see, the first one just despawned just then. So then the 4th one will come out now, and the first one just despawned, which will make it 3 in the zone. So that's that fight. Very simple. Just be careful and just use the room accordingly. We're gonna jump down here. We have our cooldowns up, so I am gonna double pull this. This is a bit of a scary pack because there are a lot of interrupts again. Just interrupt the main guy here. I'm just going to use my ability to grip them all in. Now, they're all doing Firebolts, Shadow Bolts, Dread Infernos, all that stuff. You'll see a lot of these abilities from the last boss and the mobs up ahead. The Firebolts are okay. The Dread Infernos are a little annoying. And also the other ability that was there. Can't really remember what the other ability was. But you saw them, there were the big AoEs on the ground. So the purple AoE and the curse, sorry. The purple AoE and also the orange AoE. Now they do a lot of damage if it actually does go off, so make sure you're interrupting those. And then you can use like AoE stuns on like Mass Firebolt casts or Shadow Bolts or whatever. Now these mobs are probably the worst mob in the game for tanks. I can't even stress how much damage these guys do. This is probably the only mob that I actually need to run away from. But as a blood DK, you can't heal if you run away, so it's very annoying. So what I'm doing is I'm running in, I'm AMSing immediately. So then they don't apply the stack to me. Because if they apply a poison stack to you, I'm literally going to take about 800k damage per second just from one tick. of this debuff. Now, what I'm telling my healer is only remove the debuff if I have 2 or more. So I instantly got 3, and you see how fast I died? Instantly purgatoried. Now, he just removed it as I was about to die, and I just needed to run. Because that does so much damage. So all I'm doing is we're putting a tar trap down. I'm just constantly putting my slow D&D down to make sure I don't even go near them, because it'll immediately kill me. With other tanks, it depends on how good you are with dealing with magic damage, and then if you're also a paladin or a monk, you can probably, I'm pretty sure you can just get rid of you can just dispel yourself, because you can as a paladin and a monk. Everything else, yeah, warriors are gonna have a hard time with it. DKs kind of have a hard time with it if their AMS expires, and then yeah, it just depends on how many stacks you get. It's pretty RNG when they get you. And then this pack is just a smattering of pretty much 5 of the mobs that you fought previously. Yeah, just be a bit careful for the tanks, especially for this bat. Just be very careful of that bat. You want to interrupt your Dread Infernos and your Curse of Isolation and all that. And then you want to be careful because one of these mobs do spawn that clone that I talked about after the Oakheart, the second boss, which you need to make sure you have aggro of straight away, otherwise it will just one-shot one of your DPS. And then we're going to jump down, that's 100% done. And we're going to go into the final boss, which is the Shade of Xavius. Now, there is a little bit of a trick here to deal with Xavius. That'll make this boss a lot easier. Now, you want to tank him at the very back of the room, right in the back here. Now, the reason why is because for some unknown reason, and I don't know why, but I mean, it does kind of make sense. Because you're in such a small area and you're only in that area, it doesn't seem like a lot of the swirls from the boss in the second phase drop in this area. Now, I don't know if it's because of a proximity thing or because we have 3 ranged in our group, because we have done this with only 1 ranged in our group and it seemed to be the same thing. But the boss never gets more than 2 to 3 stacks maybe, unless you're really unlucky. And you'll figure out what I'm talking about once we get to the second phase about what the stacks are. But right now, all we've got are Festering Rip, Growing Paranoia, and a Nightmare Bolt. So Growing Paranoia puts the debuff on a player, which you can see up here, which puts that red floor on the ground on them, which means if anyone touches that ground, it'll instantly fear the person with the paranoia. So they have to be by themselves. And then you've got the Nightmare Bolt, which puts a silence circle around the player, which will it'll need the player to be stacked on someone else in order to actually not be silenced. Otherwise, they won't be able to use their abilities. You've also got Feed the Weak, which is going to target a random player, and it's just going to do a shit ton of damage to them. So you need to use a defensive, or you need to make sure that the healer has got you very quickly, because the longer this fight goes, the harder it's going to get, because of the stacks I'm going to show you and talk about later. You've also got your Festering Rip, which should be coming up soon after that. And then once the boss gets to 50%, the boss will transition into second phase, which is where you want to be holding your cooldowns and popping your lust in the second phase, because you want to get out of this phase as soon as possible, because it does get very, very, very hectic. Now, if you do have multiple melee in the group, all you do is you have anyone with the silence stack on the tank, and you have all the people with the fear growth under them to stack on the opposite side of the boss, or opposite side of the tank, at max melee distance, which is this red circle around the boss. And you will never hit each other, as long as you're at max melee distance, which where I am here, and then they just need to be over there, and you'll be able to have full uptime on the boss, no problems. Don't walk out of there and sit by yourself for like 2 minutes as a melee DPS. Just hit the boss. If you get feared, so be it. It's better than just sitting there and doing no damage. Apocalyptic Nightmare's coming out. This is the 50% phase 2 start, which is going to do a lot of damage and AoE. So you want to make sure you use defensive, or you can all stack up and use a big cooldown. Obviously, if you have the fear ground, don't stack up. Just use a defensive. Save yourself. So using a defensive here, you see we have a bubble at the top there. And a lot of us don't take any damage, and a few of us take a bit of damage. So this is where we pop Lust, and we're going to absolutely destroy this boss. Now you can see all these swirls coming down on the ground. You saw one of them hit the boss just then. We see my weak aura up here, telling me it has plus damage and 1 stack. Every time a bolt hits the boss, they gain a stack that increases their damage, and every stack they have, well, you can tell it's going to get harder and harder to heal because the damage that the boss is going to do to a single target when they're using that feed on the weak is going to be ridiculous. So you want to make sure it doesn't go too much. Luckily, that stack just dropped off by the time the second stack came on, so it only still has 1 stack. And you can see, a lot of the swirls are just not coming in this area. We've only had 2 swirls in this area the whole time, and I've just pretty much kept the boss still. I've barely moved, so it helps. It helps the DPS because they know the boss is always going to be in the same spot, or roughly in the same spot, and it's not everyone trying to just run away everywhere, right? Like, unfortunately there, we just got RNG'd. A bunch of them spawn in one place, but majority of the time, you're just pretty chill. It has 3 stacks now, it's about to fall off. Happy days. No stack boss. Makes it easier for the healer to deal with, right? I think our DH died, unfortunately. I think they got hit by one of the swirls. But yeah, that's Darkheart Thicket right there. I was very happy with this key. I was very proud of the group. 25 on week 3, which was awesome. Still had a bit of time left as well, so 26 would have been a little bit tight. We needed to, smooth some things out and not have as many deaths. But with 6 deaths and 2.5 minutes left, I was a happy boy. So yeah, if you have any questions or you want to add something to the video, please put it in the comment section below. I am streaming pretty much every day on twitch.tv/triplebs. All my links are in the bio at the bottom of the video. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I will try to put more guides as soon as possible and stop procrastinating on this, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and you learned something new. Peace out, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.